5, 4, 3, 2.
Yugi Bros! We did it again, boys and girls. We got first place, undefeated, with another Speed Duel deck in the Speed Duel tournament locals at Kerwin's Game Store this past weekend. Different deck this time, completely different deck. And our skill, of course, as you can see here, was Twisted Personality, the one, the only. This one is the skill that says, every time a player loses life points, you place one counter on it, max 3. Once per turn, during your main phase, you can use one of the following skills. Either you remove 2 counters from this card to discard a random card from your opponent's hand, or you remove 3 counters from this card to then destroy one face-up card your opponent controls. And that destruction does not target, which is really, really dumb. Obviously, when you're playing a burn deck, this is the skill to play, but we didn't play specifically a burn deck, though there are burn cards in our deck. We actually took it to another level. This deck I accidentally made, if you can believe that. A friend of mine needed a list for a burn deck for Speed Duels, but it needed to get around Power of Friendship, which is a Taya skill that you could side in that says you don't take effect damage on your turn. So as I'm building him a burn deck that dodges that skill, I'm realizing that there's a lot of things that switch things to defense mode now. And with piercing, monsters can do extra damage. And instead of summoning monsters like Gravekeeper's Curse or waiting for them to swing into Blast Spheres, we could just go on the offensive and summon Beat Sticks, and no matter what they put their monster in attack or defense, we can do some damage. So that is what birthed this crazy idea, which plays a piercing package of triple Spear Dragon and triple Enraged Battle Ox. Both of these do piercing. There's 2 differences though. Battle Ox says if your Beast Warrior or Wing Beast monster attacks a defense position monster, you inflict piercing battle damage. So we don't actually play any other Beast Warrior, Wing Beasts, or Beasts, but we could alternatively do so. But I wanted every one card to be a 1-card piercer. I didn't want this to have to, or another monster to have to rely on this to be relevant. Otherwise, I guess we probably would have played Vorse Raider, but we ended up playing just Spear Dragon instead, who does say if it attacks a defense, it does piercing. Except for the downside of Spear Dragon is if he attacks afterward, he goes to defense position. But it's not really a huge loss, and if he goes to defense and he's getting swung over by usually a bigger thing anyways, we're not taking any damage. Now, I understand his defense is 0, but we have cards in our deck that, you know, make up for the fact that he goes to defense mode. So that is literally our monster lineup. The only other monster we play is Triple Sphere Karibo, but we obviously are playing this to both negate an opponent's attack and switch their monster to defense position. That is the common theme here. So that is it for the monsters. On to the spells. The only one we play is Triple Book of Moon because A, it stops a monster from attacking, and B, it switches it to defense position. Obviously, you're seeing the common theme here. This is obviously just a really good card in general. I would recommend playing 3 of this in almost every single deck that exists currently in the Speed Duels. But that was our only spell card. Now, I know what you're thinking, Yugi Bros. Jinzo is prevalent in this game. If it's not in the main deck, it's in almost everybody's side deck. Yes, I understand that. But in the main deck, a lot of people aren't playing Jinzo. It's always in their side deck. So game 1, we're going to load up on traps. In game 2, we'll side in more ways to get rid of Jinzo. But guys, don't forget, this also can get rid of Jinzo. Obviously, you have to play a little bit correctly to get the counters to where you want to be, and your opponent has to, you know, play into you to also get the counters. But again, main deck, you're not expecting Jinzo too often, so like I said, we kind of loaded on traps. The first, of course, being Zoma the Spirit. This is, of course, the general burn card that's just really, really good to play in everything, and is also an 1800 beat stick. Yes, it doesn't do piercing, but it allows you to stall because your opponent's probably going to be lower life than normal. They might not want to swing into this, take more damage, and also put a counter on your skill as well. And obviously, it's just a really good generic card in general. Then we played Triple Nightmare Wheel. This card prevents an opponent's monster from attacking or changing its battle position, and then during your standby phase, it inflicts 500 to them. This actually gets around Power of Friendship. The only card that doesn't get around Power of Friendship in our main deck anyway is Zoma the Spirit if they attack into it. But on your turn, if you crash this into something bigger and they take the damage, they can't stop you there. And again, nobody's really siding Power of Friendship, but the logic always was that if Burn ever became a relevant deck again, we'd all either just side more Jinzos and or side Power of Friendship to make sure we don't take Burn on our turn. But believe it or not, there's actually, most of the Burn cards in this game burn on your turn rather than your opponent's, like this does it under standby phase. So you can actually get around the skill, no problem. It's just Jinzo you're mainly worrying about. The next trap we play is 000 Gravity. Now this is an interesting card. This is Windstorm of Itaqua, but for all monsters on the field. It changes the battle position of all monsters face up on the field. Now this is actually really good because in addition to obviously just switching everything in general, if you have Spear in defense mode and you flip 0 Gravity, not only do their monsters mostly go to defense, but yours goes to attack mode. Now, later on in the game, after they see a 0 Gravity once, they will do the thing that everyone used to do with Windstorm, which is they won't put all their monsters in attack mode. But again, because if you have this and you flip everything, this goes as well. So even if they do put one of their monsters in attack mode, unless it's 19 or less, it's not getting over this, or at least crashing it. But that way, you know, you do save yourself a little bit longer. So that's why I think 0 Gravity ends up being better than Windstorm in this deck, just because of the extra interaction it has with Spear Dragon. And the last card we played in the main deck is One Waking the Dragon. I feel like right now, in general, everyone's popping back row, usually. This is just a good card in the main deck. As soon as they see it, you side it out most of the time because they end up playing around your back row for the remainder of the game. However, in Burn, a lot of the times they still want to get rid of your back row regardless, which is why keeping this in isn't even a terrible idea either. And, you know. So of course, with that, our extra deck is the same as it always is. It is 1 Blue Eyes Ultimate as a beat stick to summon off Waking the Dragon, 1 Arcane and Night Joker, as also a beat stick to summon off Waking the Dragon, but also can negate a card effect that targets this card by discarding the same type of card from your hand to the grave. So if a spell targets this, you discard a spell to negate it. It's only once per turn, so like against XYZ, if they have more than one card to discard in their hand, they can still get rid of this, even if you have a monster to negate it, because it's only once per turn, but you do burn 2 cards out of their hand. Alligator Sword and Ryu Senshi, as I've said in previous videos, they're just niche cards for specific situations. And finally, we played the double Thousand Eyes Restrict. I understand I don't need double when I'm only playing 1 Waking the Dragon. This could be like a Meteor Black Dragon or something. But the 6th spot right now for a Waking the Dragon target doesn't really exist. That wouldn't just get covered in something like this anyway, even if you were playing a second Wake the Dragon. I guess you could play 2 and 2 instead of 2 of this, but I really like this card in general, so. Onto the side deck. To deal with the ever-prevalent Jinzo problem, we side 2 Offerings to the Doomed. One of these is Europrint, that's why it's extremely darker compared to the other one. Somebody trade me another Europrint, please. Multiple, if possible. But yeah, so Jinzo, like I said, is like your main problem, and while you can still pop it with this, it's not always going to have the counters needed to get rid of the card. Therefore, a quicker answer is Offerings to the Doomed. We do Main Book of Moon, which is an answer to it, but not really, because you can flip Jinzo down for a turn, your traps are live again, and both your Enraged Battleox and your Spear Dragon can swing over the Jinzo, but if your opponent has anything to stop that attack, then Jinzo's just flip it next turn and all your traps go back offline. So I'd like to have extra outs to the Jinzo just to get rid of it once and for all. Then we play 2 Fairy Wind. This card's actually really dumb right now. The card says destroy as many face-up speller traps on the field as possible except this card, and if you do, each player takes damage equal to the total number of the cards destroyed times 300. So it will, keep in mind, it will destroy your own face-up cards as well if you have Nightmare Wheel or Zone of the Spirit face up, for example. You can also do it in chain to, like, say you need a little extra damage and you like flip a 0 Gravity, you can then chain the Fairy Wind. Fairy Wind will pop this and this will count for 300, so as long as it's just face up when this is resolving, this will try and destroy as many face up spawn traps as possible and do extra damage. You can win just a lot of games off of just this card and how dumb it is. But it's also good against, like, let's say XYZ, for example. If they activate their field spell and you chain this, it's an out to their field spell and they take 300. Let's say they have the field spell and a monster equipped with a Union monster, and you flip this, it pops the Union monster, and it pops the field spell. It's just a good way to get rid of their face-up back row in general, and of course against opposing Zone of the Spirits. Keep in mind, though, this actually deals the damage at the same time. We actually had a game, I had to go into a game 4. I had to check the ruling if game 4s were still a thing, but yes, you still have to win 2 games in your time allotted area before you can determine a match winner, unless of course you go into time. And we had a game where I was actually playing against the burn deck that I made for that friend of mine, and we were both low enough, and I read this, and a lot of burn cards these days will burn you first to try to prevent people from losing the game, or from tying the game and going into like more than one game 1, 2, and 3. But no, this still does the damage at the same exact time, so I actually found that I couldn't beat him but I could flip Fairy Wind and go to game and force the game 4. So that is exactly what I did. And let me tell you, it was scary because we were almost close to time. I think we only had 3 minutes left, and we go into starting at game 4. But it is burn versus burn, pseudo burn, I guess. So it is what it is. And then finally we played, and we never actually saw this, but we played 2 security orbs. And the thought behind this is, well, let me read it to you first. Its effect is when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you target the attacking monster, change that target's battle position, and the second effect of this card is if this set card is destroyed by your opponent's spell trap effect and is sent to the graveyard, destroy 1 monster on the field. Now, my logic is, at the very worst, it's a pseudo Book of Moon, arguably, for the battle phase. At the very best, they're popping this with, like, let's say Night Beam or some type of spell and trap hate, and you get to pop any monster on the field and this doesn't target. So do keep in mind there are a lot of things these days that destroy spell and traps that are not spell and trap effects, like Breaker the Magical Warrior is an excellent example, XYZ, Dragon Cannon, or XZ, if this is set. So it's not going to hit everything, but the logic is, again, it was put something in defense mode so that your piercers can run it over. Or if they're high on Night Beam and something like that, you have this as an option, but I never brought this in. It never ended up being prevalent enough. So definitely going forward, I wouldn't probably play this. I'd either side Lava Golem because you can put that on their field and you still have Nightmare Wheel. You could also technically play Mask of the Accursed. And this one is like Nightmare Wheel, but it burns them. But it's a spell, and they can also change the battle position. But the thing is, they still can't attack, so you could put this on a Lava Golem, and then, order the Nightmare Wheel on the Lava Golem, or just wall with the Jinzo, because Lava Golem would probably kill them if they attacked your Zoma. Or you could also side Spell Shattering Arrow. It's a quick play spell card that says destroy as many face-up spells your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each. So sure, it doesn't hit opposing Nightmare Wheels or, more importantly, opposing Zomas, but only destroying your opponent's face-up spells and not yours as well, and 500 for each instead of 300 can stack real quick. But this was the deck, believe it or not. I actually did go undefeated. I was a little shocked. I played this half because I thought it was a really cool idea, and half because I wanted to play something different. Don't get me wrong, I think the Apprentice deck is still the much stronger option, but I did want to, I love playing the opposite of what they're expecting me to play. So if I played the Apprentice Magician Inner Conflict deck, definitely, they would have been more prepared for that this week than they were last week, but also I wanted to play something that wasn't really meta. Definitely, I normal summoned to this, I think, my first game 1, and everyone looks at me and they're like, what are you playing? And that is what brings me pure joy in tournaments. So, anyway, guys, comment, like, and subscribe as always. Click that notification bell. And hopefully we can three-peat this event this coming Saturday. I don't know what we're playing yet. It's not going to be this, and it's not going to be the other deck. It's going to be something new, because you know how I roll. But as always, I'm Yugi Bros, and I'm signing out. Peace.